Those are the things we've done with professional development recently.
Mhm.
Also at the building level, we do have Mrs. Moyle in terms of technology available to teachers to take professional development days with her,
Right.
where it's very much geared towards their current ability level in technology, and she can take them to the next level.
Yeah.
And because it's so specified, that's a way that we look at teacher differences.
Mhm.
Because some people would be looking at a much more advanced professional development day than others.
Right.
And I think it's the way that we're now comfortable having a smart board in every room because
Mhm.
everybody would be utilizing it.
Yes.
It wouldn't be hanging from the wall and, again, be a glorified chalkboard.
Yeah, collecting dust.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So that's some of the things we do in professional development.
Okay. How do you think that the professional development activities and the things that you set up, how do you think they affect teacher effectiveness? Or how do you think they, that's what I kind of wanted to say.
Well, in terms of technology, I think that what it allows teachers to do is present more examples in a shorter period of time to students. That's one thing. Two, there's a lesson sharing that goes on, that should go on, that allows teachers to hone their skills and to do pre-assessment so you teach what you need to teach and you move forward.
Okay.
So you can curriculum compact easier
Mhm.
in that regard. I think also what we've done at Lafayette is we've been able to differentiate instruction to the extent now where students are being taught at a level commensurate with their ability.
Right.
Where that's the critical part. We're not teaching to the middle, and we're teaching to students at that or just before their rate of learning.
Mhm.
And that's what's important. And we're stretching their abilities.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you're required to do as an administrator when dealing with learning in your school? So making sure that learning and teaching are effective and not dysfunctional.
I think monitoring it,
Mhm.
Being around, but I don't know. The word required is, I think we're required to do, a comprehensive job in terms of, being present in the building and
Right.
being, candid with the teachers about their abilities
Mhm.
and what we see in the classrooms.
Okay.
I think we're held accountable more for some of the administrivia that goes on that has absolutely nothing to do with learning when it really comes down to accountability.
Right.
We're held accountable to integrated pest management plans. We're held accountable to programs like that are from the state of New Jersey
Mhm.
rather than the learning goals.
Right.
So it's a matter of me as an administrator proactively prioritizing students before administrivia, taking care of administrivia, of course, taking care of the nuts and bolts that they
Right.
want accomplished,
Yeah, which is important.
but on a non-school time. In other words, late in the afternoon when the kids aren't here.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that would be my answer.
What are some of your state requirements? You said something about that. The things that the state requires you to do.
But they're very little to do with learning.
Right.
It would be a very short answer because there's nothing they just make sure we make annual performance, AYP. Lafayette Mills has made AYP. So I just have to monitor that our scores are there, that they make AYP again
Okay.
for our special contingent, and our general population. But I don't see that there's a tremendous amount of in a well-functioning school district like Manalapan,
Right.
Manalapan Englishtown, I should say. There's not a lot of focus on that.
Okay. So you said there's not a lot of focus on the test scores.
No,
so
the test scores, we focus on the test scores on our own, but we don't get mandates from the state
Okay.
to say, you need to get to this point.
Right.
We're at that point.
Yeah.
We're at the point where they want us to continue to move towards. So most of the mandates from the state have very little to do with learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are so what are some of the things that you would do differently as an administrator? What are some of the things that you're required to do by the state? Would you do anything differently if you didn't have to? What would you do? What would you do more
Well,
of?
it'd just be more time to focus on student learning. So I would not have to monitor, and I could delegate out the integrated pest management plan.
Right.
We would make sure that that was taken care of course, but it would be done by a custodial supervisor rather than the principal.
Right.
And the principal is firmly, according to the county, firmly in charge of that. It must not be delegated to any other designate.
Yeah.
The new bullying policy and program would be we would be dealing with things proactively
Mm-hmm.
rather than reacting to every bullying situation.
Right.
What should be required is teaching what we've always done here
Mhm.
is teaching kids about being a good citizen.
Right.
And why bullying is a problem
Mm-hmm.
and how it'll take the school down a path we don't want it to go down. That's
Yeah.
why we don't have a lot of bullying incidents. What they've done is they've required a law to be passed where both the alleged victim, I have to now delegate that to another person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not supposed to be running the investigation, so I
Okay.
would, if that law didn't exist, I would do things the way I did them in the past,
Right.
and we didn't have a lot of bullying problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't predict how that law will impact bullying because I don't know yet. It's too new.
Yes.
What I can say is that it's a cumbersome process. Instead of being able to just handle it, speak to parents about the severity of the situation,
Mhm.
memorialize what you need to, if necessary, and then move on. And
Right.
then go back to what we're here for, which is to educate kids.
Mhm.
Those would be two examples of what I would consider to be legislation that's now passed that we have to follow and will.
Right.
But if I could do things differently, those are time-consuming
Mm-hmm.
elements of the job.
Yeah. So yeah, just being proactive about it rather than rather than having to react to every situation. So planning ahead so it doesn't happen, the bullying situations and things
Right.
like that.
I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I think that also improves student performance because people are then, you're looking at socially and emotionally, they're safe
Right.
to ask the important academic question.
Yeah. And if they're not safe, it doesn't.
Kids need to feel safe.
Right. Yeah. So, what have you done? Is this the only building that you've been an administrator in? Or
I
have
was
you been
math
other
supervisor for the school district, Manalapan Englishtown School District, for a year. So I've been an administrator in that regard as a central office administrator.
Okay.
So I would have seen all 8 of the buildings.
Yes. What do you notice in other buildings that's different than here about learning? So like the different programs that they have and things like that. And the other buildings in the district, what are some of the other things that they do? If you can tell me about any of those, or that you had when
Each
you were there.
building has somewhat of a unique climate. It's the information I would have as a math supervisor is about 5 years old.
Mhm.
We do meet as colleagues frequently, so I think a lot of the things that we're doing are similar. I think
Mhm.
each of us we're all trying something different and then sharing out the results.
Mhm.
So I think that there are different approaches to the same goal of learning.
Right.
So what I've seen in the other buildings, very similar to what we're doing.
Mhm.
A little bit more of a focus in some on student performance in terms of their chapter tests
Okay.
rather than on benchmark testing
Mhm.
that goes beyond the traditional curriculum. Whereas here, I think we focused on benchmark
Benchmarks.
testing that is more similar to the core content standards
Okay.
that are updated.
Mhm.
So I think that may be one difference.
Okay.
Whereas the chapter tests, so for example, in the mathematics series is now 6 years old, and the math standards have now changed.
Mhm.
Now the test hasn't changed yet, but it will.
Right.
And I think that they're focusing on the textbook.
Okay.
Whereas I think we're focusing on the Common Core standards from a more global perspective from the state level.
Okay.
I think that's where I deviate from the other schools possibly.
Okay.
But
How do you-
that is an estimate at this point.
Yes. How do you think that affects? So how do you think the students here would be different than the students there?
I'm really not sure.
Yeah.
I'm really not sure. I don't think I can accurately answer
Okay.
that question.
Yeah. I'd be interested to find out how that would affect their scores if we're focusing more on benchmarks here. So like planning ahead, and so that I think that they would do better on chapter tests here if they're doing more benchmark.
We would hope.
Yeah, that's what I would think that.
I haven't
how that
seen
would work.
a negative effect on
Okay.
their typical chapter test performance in any of the subject areas. I do know that we've improved our science scores, for example. I know in the other buildings, I felt at one point when I first became principal that the other schools, the way they did science was a little bit more hands-on.
Okay.
And although we had promoted a hands-on, minds-on approach, as principal, one of the things I made sure that actually happened. The teachers had an organized room to get materials from, that we would get them the materials to make a hands-on activity possible,
Mhm.
and not only for them, but it was stress-free for them.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So I think you've kind of already answered this, but let's say that a frustrated teacher comes to you with a student who is not learning concepts in math or science or something, and the teacher feels as if she's tried everything. She's differentiated instruction, she's talked to parents, she's talked to colleagues, and asked other students to help, and that just nothing has worked, and so she's frustrated and she's coming to you. How would you handle that
well, the first
situation?
thing we have them do is fill out materials for.
If you have to go.
Yeah,
That's the
I
last.
do.
Okay.
I have a meeting.
Okay.
First thing we do is have them fill out the materials for INRS.
Okay.
And when they memorialize that in the INRS forms,
Mhm.
what I find is that there are a few things they could also try.
Okay.
When we meet as an INRS committee,
Mhm.
their colleagues then offer them some more supports. And what we might do is even assign another teacher to that student to help them address whatever particular problem they're having.
Mhm.
And we call that Save One Student.
Okay.
So those are some of the things I might do
Okay.
to help that teacher through that process
Sure.
and that stumbling block.
Yeah.
And then that's when we get the parent involved as well.
Right.
It's not all on the teacher.
What is INRS?
Intervention and referral service.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let me get down.
Thanks.